Quality Assurance Cell of TCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Goa. Before we begin this session, I kindly request all the participants to switch off their cameras and mute their microphones during the session. The floor for questions will be open towards the end of all three sessions. You will be required to post your questions or queries in the chat box during the question and answer session. Also, at the end of the session, a feedback link will be posted in the chat box. Kindly provide us your valuable feedback. Today, we have with us three presenters. Mr. Rupit Bandari from the SYBSE. He'll be speaking on the topic, the story of food adulteration. Then we have Ms. Neha Dabas from TYBSC Zoology, who will be speaking on hygiene and sanitation. And finally, we have Ms. Tijika Kulia from TYBSC Chemistry, who will be speaking on sports and nutrition. I would now like to request Dr. Mukta Karmadi to introduce Mrs. Vandana Satasai, the chairperson for today's session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Good morning, one and all present here. It's my pleasure to introduce the chairperson for today's session, that is Mrs. Vandana M. Sardesai. Vandana Sardesai was alumnus of this college. She has completed her bachelor degree from Dempe College of Arts and Science and has completed her master's degree from Goa University. Vandana has been working as an assistant professor in English for the past 19 years at Dempe College of Arts and Science, as well as Salgaonkars College of Law. She has organized different activities for her students, such as collage making, poetry recitation, vocabulary contest, story writing competition, designing and advertisement contest, etc. She also started her venture called Vandana's Delicacies. She used to conduct cooking and baking classes for the students. And recently she has started her new venture called Plant Mania. It's a pleasure to have you, Vandana, with us today. And thank you for accepting our invitation to be the chairperson for this particular session. I extend a warm welcome to you on behalf of DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, principal, management, staff, and students. A warm welcome to you, Vandana.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now over to Jocelyn.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now like to request our first speaker, Mr. Rupit Bandari, to begin with his session.
A very good morning to the dignitaries, teachers, and non-teaching staff, and my fellow students. My name is Rupit Bhandari from second year BSc, and I'll be just give me a second, right? Okay, wait. There we go. Yeah, much better. I will be presenting to you the story of adulteration, through which we will be talking about its causes, its effects, the various ways people have tried to poison our food, and the various ways we've tried to stop it over the 75 years of India's independence. And where to start with, but with the basics. What is adulteration? Adulteration can be pretty much described by degrading the quality of food through the addition of chemicals, preservatives, and whatever materials you can find. Materials used to that particular end are known as adulterants. Now, one thing we need to note is that food adulteration is not an invention of the 20th or 21st century. In fact, Chanakya mentioned the adulteration of food in which dates back all the way to 375 BC. It's been a common practice since time. this purple oval, huge one, is your core food. And throughout various stages of production and processing are the adulterants which are added into the final product. Now, on the surface, it may look fine, but when you look a little deeper, well, not so much. So when we talk about adulteration, there's always two sides of the coin. The two sides being your cause and your effect. Let's talk about the causes first. Now, a very possible situation, a possible reasoning behind this could be that, well, it's just too many mouths to feed, right? India has a population of about 139 crore people, and it's only increasing each day. With such a high number of mouths to feed, there's quite a significant disparity between the supply and demand of food. And it's only natural for such a dangerous idea to take hold. uh, Chemicals and toxins and other unnecessary substances may be unintentionally contaminating the food that is released as final product. But let's not kid ourselves. The real reason is self-interest. Food vendors or large industries, they will all do whatever it takes to their bottom line and increase profit margins. That is, either dilute food with some unnecessary substance or use harmful chemicals such as pesticides and preservatives and whatnot. Now, what does this all lead to? Well, it leads to basically the loss of nutritional value. If you're taking a pure product and you're diluting it with something else, you're also diluting its effects, and in this case, the nutrient concentration. Moreover, the ingestion of unnecessary and toxic substances can lead to poisoning, vomiting, diarrhea, and many more diseases. Some people may also experience allergic reactions due to the specific uh, adulterants that are added. And a rather unique effect is food wastage. Bet you didn't see that coming. The thing with food wastage is that when you're taking a certain amount of food and you're adulterating it, and if that food is identified as such, where does it go? To the dustbin. Because no one is going to be willing to eat it. And in the end, it will be done and it will be thrown out. So what this is doing is it essentially feeding the cycle where food is being wasted, increasing the disparity between your supply and demand, and to fill that supply and demand gap, we're adulterating more food, which is leading to more food wastage. Now that we've talked about the cause and effect, let's talk about the thing that ties them together. The means of adulteration. And to do this, I'll be using two examples of commonly adulterated foods, milk and honey. Well, milk is quite notorious for its tendency to be of an adulterated, well, often with water. We've all heard that milkman story where gallons and gallons of water are added to improve the amount of milk present, and the guy just sells it like nothing. However, recently milk has also been found to be diluted with other liquids such as oils, solids like wheat flour, and even detergents. Milk and milk products have also a tendency to be adulterated with starch and other sugars. What this does is basically reduce the quality of milk, its nutritional value, and moreover, the shelf life and health risks, safeties of milk and dairy products. Now, just to give you a glimpse on the scale at which food adulteration can happen, allow me to give you one example. In a surprise check in Mumbai in October of 2018, 227 tankers carrying 9.27 lakh liters of milk were tested. Out of these, only 13 tankers were returned, citing substandard quality of milk. That does not mean much out of 227 until you realize nearly 3,444 liters of milk was returned. Ouch. More adulterants, major adulterants were low quality fats, solid not fats, sucrose, maltodextrin, and ammonium sulfate. So this pretty much gives you an idea of how in one place in just a week the amount of milk can be found adulterated. And just imagine if that is extrapolated to the entire world in a year. Then we have honey. Honey is also notable for being adulterated, and mostly it's adulterated with sugar or sugar syrup. There are also other kinds of sugar syrups used, such as rice syrup and wheat syrup, but we will get into that later when we talk about something. There are also adulterants that are including pesticides, antibiotic residues that are unintentionally included in the final products and are not, completely removed during the processing. Unfortunately, one of the major issues with safety standards with honey has been the huge back and forth between the quality standards in mandated by the FSSAI. Since the initial rules were laid down way back in 1954 after independence, it took about 2014, about 60 years, funny isn't it, when the FSSAI introduced new quality standards to honey, including antibiotic limits for products sold domestically. This was then followed up by stringent checks using special marker for rice syrup, trace marker for rice syrup, and foreign oligosaccharides, which was enforced in 2018. Which is pretty good because these rice syrup and wheat syrups can be very difficult to track using your standard methods. This, however, was then revisioned in 2019, and for no apparent reason, with a total lack of transparency, the parameters for SMR, TMR, foreign oligosaccharides, and pollen grains were excised from the quality standards completely. This was then undermined once again in 2020 when certain standards, including the pollen grain counts, were restored and enforced once again. However, the SMR and TMR checks still suspiciously remained absent. This leads to a problem that I will get into in a bit detail, but please, I'd like you just to remember this. So why should we care? This is a very simple question, but to be fair, it's versus pollution. If pollution can be considered as the adulteration or the contamination of the outside, the surroundings, or the environment, well, food adulteration basically facilitates the contamination of the human body itself. And if environmental pollution can cause such drastic changes that we are still reeling from, just imagine how much havoc that can cause in the human body. So now let's talk about the various ways we've tried to curb food adulteration throughout the India's 75 years of freedom. After freedom in 1954, the Prevention of Food Adulteration or Food Adulteration Act was laid down with certain guidelines for maintaining a high quality of food. These guidelines, however, were strictly enforced due to a number of ways. One was because of the previously fragmented system of guidelines enforced during British Raj. And second was due to the fact that there was no uniform governing body at that time that could enforce these guidelines. The last amendment to this act was in 1986. In 2006, the Food Safety and Standards Act, or the SSS, was issued, which came into force in 2011. This led to the establishment of the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. This is basically the governing body that we require, which is responsible for laying down scientific standards of food articles with respect to their manufacture, storage, sale, import, and export. And its aim is to ensure safe, wholesome, and accessible food for all. To that end, the FSSAI has undertaken a large number of initiatives and enforced quite a few guidelines, including the DART, Detect Adulteration Before Acid Test, the Eat Right India Initiative, Diet for Life, Food, that is Save Food, Share Love, Share Joy Act. There's a whole lot of this. However, as seen in the case regarding with honey, there are certain areas where improvement in the FSSAI proceedings need to be maintained. The actions of the FSSAI and the FSS Act are not in step with the rapid increase in the means of adulteration. And again, there is a huge lack of transparency that needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. However, that does lead to the question, can we do something? Can we take it in our hands? And the answer would be a resounding yes. Not only have a lot of independent labs and NGOs tried to fight against food adulteration, issuing awareness, causing awareness raising initiatives, and carrying out independent food adulteration tests, but the government itself has started to promote the citizens to take the detect adulteration in their own hands. And one of them is the aforementioned DART, DART. There we go. DART stands for Detect Adulteration with a Rapid Test, and what it is basically a series of quick and easy tests that can be done to detect common adulterants in the most daily foods. We're going to use the same examples that we used before, milk and honey. As we already said, common adulterants of milk are water and starch, while sugar syrup is a common adulterant of honey. So, how do we detect these? For milk, we can put a drop of milk on a polished slanting surface. So pure milk will either stay or flow down slowly, leaving a white trail behind. Adulterated milk, that is filled with water, will flow immediately without leaving a mark. Now, starch can be detected using a solution known as tincture of iodine, which turns blue in the presence of starch. Honey, well, it's pretty easy. Just take a transparent glass filled with water, and add a drop of honey. If the honey is pure, it will not disperse. But if there is added sugar in it, the honey will start to slowly disperse in the water, creating such a colored solution. Or you could just dip a cotton wick in pure honey and light it with a matchstick. Pure honey will burn without much issues. But if there is water in form of an adulterant, it will start to produce cracking sound and interfere in the burning of the wick. Now, before we try to, just wrap it all up, I'd like to ask ourselves a rhetorical question. We consider our bodies to be our inner sanctum, as sacred as our places of worship. So if that's the case, then should we let others' individual greed and self-interest corrode our bodies and leave us weak and fragile and unable to carry our country and maintain its own freedom and prosperity? Well, with that rhetorical question, I'd like to leave the floor open to your questions. Please ask away, and I'll try my best to answer them. In the meantime, these are my references. And finally, I'd like to thank all of you for being such a fantastic audience, and I hope all of you have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rupeet Bandari, for the wonderful session on the story of food adulteration. It was truly insightful. I would now like to request the speaker of the second session, Ms. Neha Dabas, to take over.
Good morning. My name is Neha. I'm from TY Zoology. And my according What is hygiene? Hygiene is a series of practices performed to preserve health. according to the World Health Organization, hygiene refers to conditions and practices that help to maintain health and prevent the spread of diseases. Hygiene, as defined by the WHO, refers to the conditions and practices that help maintain health and prevent spread of diseases. Now, what is sanitation? Sanitation refers to the public health conditions such as drinking clean water, sewage treatment, etc. All the effective tools and actions that help in keeping the environment clean come under sanitation. Mahatma Gandhi said, "I want clean India first and independent India later." That is how important keeping a hygienic and clean environment is. Now let's look at the global scenario. Globally, 1 in 3 people lack a hygienic toilet in their homes. Sanitation and hygiene are critical for health, economic growth, personal security, and dignity, especially for women and girls. Investments in sanitation reduce healthcare costs and boost productivity as time available for work and school increases. Every day, thousands of children around the world die from diarrheal disease caused by inadequate sanitation, and yet globally, more people have access to a mobile phone than a toilet. Insufficient access to sanitation is estimated to have a cost the globe economy more than $220 billion. Now let's look at our country. India has made rapid progress in ending open defecation across the country, which is having a huge impact on improving water, sanitation, and hygiene. Just a few years ago, nearly half of India's population of around 568 million people suffered the indignity of defecating in fields, forests, bodies of water, or other public spaces due to lack of access of toilets. India alone accounted for 90% of people in South Asia and half of the 1.2 billion in the world that defecated in open. India has made rapid progress in ending open defecation across the country. The number of people defecating in open in India has reduced significantly by an estimated 450 million people. However, we all need to ensure sustained use of toilets and hygiene practices by all at all times. In India's schools, recent reports also show that 22% do not have appropriate toilets for girls, 58% of preschools had no toilets at all, and 56% of preschools had no water on their premises. Less than 50% of the population has access to safely managed drinking water. Chemical contamination of water, mainly through fluorides and arsenic, is present in 1.96 million dwellings. Moreover, two-thirds of India's 718 districts are affected by extreme water depletion, and the current lack of planning for water safety and security is a major concern. Menstrual hygiene. Every month, 1.8 billion people across the world menstruate. Millions of these girls, women, transgender men, and non-binary persons are unable to manage their menstrual cycle in a dignified, healthy way. Gender inequality, discriminatory social norms, cultural taboos, poverty, and lack of basic services like toilets and sanitary products can all cause menstrual health and hygiene needs to go unmet. This has far-reaching consequences for millions of people. It restricts their mobility and personal choices. It affects attendance in school and participation in community life. And it compromises their safety, causing additional stress and anxiety. These challenges are particularly acute in humanitarian crises. Menstrual health and hygiene interventions can help overcome these obstacles. Not only do they fulfill the unmet demand for menstrual hygiene products, they also protect dignity, build confidence, and strengthen sexual and reproductive health, particularly among adolescents. Now let's look at diseases. Sanitation is another very important aspect. Many of the common diseases mentioned, such as roundworms, spread through the feces of infected people. By ensuring that people do not defecate in the open, we can completely eliminate such diseases and even more severe ones, such as the ones caused by E. coli. Poor sanitation is linked to transmission of diseases such as cholera, diarrhea, dysentery, hepatitis A, typhoid, and polio. Poor sanitation reduces human well-being, social and economic development due to impacts such as anxiety, risk of sexual assault, and lost educational opportunities. Inadequate sanitation is estimated to cause 432 diarrheal diseases and deaths annually and is a major factor in severe neglected tropical diseases. Diseases also spread through vectors. Say the vector is contaminated water, as in the case of typhoid, cholera, and amoebiasis. By drinking clean water, we can completely eliminate the chances of getting diseases. Some diseases that are caused by pathogens and are carried by insects can also be eliminated, such as uh, the ones transmitted through rats, flies, and mosquitoes. We say prevention is better than cure. By ensuring personal and public hygiene, we can keep our community and surrounding clean. Personal hygiene means keeping the body clean, consumption of clean drinking water, washing fruits and vegetables before eating, washing one's hands, etc. Public hygiene refers to discarding waste and excreta properly. That means waste segregation and recycling, regular disinfection, and maintenance of the city's water reservoir. Quality of hygiene in the kitchen is extremely important to prevent diseases. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neha, for the enriching session on hygiene and sanitation. It was really informative. And now we have a final speaker for the day, Ms. Tijika Gulia. Ms. Tijika, kindly take over.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tajika Gulia from TYBSc Chemistry. It's an unsaid thought that we all feel very privileged to be part of India celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, that is 75 years of independence. Today, I'll be presenting you on the topic sports and nutrition. And in sports, I'll be taking you through our nation's journey in International Olympics. India's first participation is seen back in 1900 Olympic Games, in which we scored two silver medals in athletes in unranked 17. Formation of Indian Olympic Association date back to 1927. This table shows you the number of medals won in various disciplines pre-independence. Hockey being the national sport of India, let me share our achievements in the discipline. Indian hockey has been the most successful team in history of Olympics with 8 golds, 1 silver and 2 bronze. And it's the only team to win 6 consecutive Olympic golds from 1928 to 1956. Dhyan Chand, famously known as the Wizard, is a very prominent name in hockey. Recently, he has been honored with the naming of our Khel Ratna Awards as Major Dhyan Chand Khel Ratna Awards. KD Jadhav. He is the first Indian to win an individual bronze medal at Olympics. Karnam Maleshwari was the first Indian woman to win an individual medal in Olympics. She won a bronze medal in 2000 Summer Olympics at Sydney for weightlifting. These were few of our great personalities who brought glory to India. But as a nation of 1.2 billion people and with the largest youth population, were we doing justice in our performance? Let's see a comparative look. Hungary, a country with 1/20th of India's population and ranked 54th as per the GDP. India with no individual gold medals at London Olympics. Hungary with 17 medals, including 8 gold medals at London Olympics. Thus, to improve India's participation and acquire gold, the Gold Quest began, whose mission was to bridge the gap between India's best and the best in the world. The board of directors include various personalities and the CEO being Viren Rajkhanna, who was a former Indian hockey captain, an Olympian, and Arjuna awardee. OGQ supported the athletes. They provided them with medical, diet, injury rehab, funding for taking part in international tournaments, provide world-class training, coaching, and equipment, mentoring and emotional support. OGQ supported 49 athletes in disciplines like shooting, athletics, boxing, etc. Athletics were taken on board. At London Olympics 2012, out of the 6 medals won, 4 were OGQ athletes. One of the example of the OGQ impact is Mary Kom. They shifted her from her preferred 46 kg category to 51 kg category and provided her with all the coaching, nutrition, personal physician so she stays at her peak fitness. One more example of the OGQ impact is none other than PV Sindhu and the progress she made from being at world rank of 151 to rising to a world rank of 17 in a span of from 2010 to 13 and with the current rank of 7. Olympic Gold Quest. It takes just 6 grams of gold to lift the worth of a nation. Now, elaborating on how nutrition plays its role and about its supplements in sports. Performance influencing factors include genetics, training and conditioning, nutrition. Determination of athletes' energy requirements varies with an individual discipline, strength, and endurance requirement. Carbohydrates. It's the major fuel source for exercising muscles. Athletes are required to consume 25 to 30 grams of carbohydrates every 20 minutes of exercise. After exercise, carbohydrates consumption leads to replacing muscle glycogen, prevents depletion of the muscle glycogen stored over time. Carbohydrate loading is advised, which benefits endurance athletes by increasing their endurance up to 20% and increasing the performance by 2 to 3%. Example of carbohydrate loading can be seen in the slide. With the decrease in days to the event, exercise duration is reduced and carbohydrate loading is increased. Protein. Athletes require more proteins than non athletes. 12% to 80% of the total calories should be consumed from proteins. It should be tailored to the type of training. Fats. Around 25 to 30% of the total calorie intake should come from fats. Cholesterol intake should be less than 300 mg per day. Conclusion. Nutrition plays an important role in an endurance athlete's ability to perform. Proper nutrition in combination with sound and proven training techniques can help endurance athletes to maximize their genetic abilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tijika Gulia, for your valuable insights on the topic sports and nutrition. It was very interesting and thought provoking. The floor is now open for questions. You may post your questions in the chat box. I request the chairperson for today's session, Mrs. Vandana Satisai, to kindly take over. Over to you, ma'am.
Good morning, respected Principal, Dr. Vrinda Borkar, Mukta ma'am, Dr. Roshida Rodriguez, my dear colleagues and my dear students. First of all, I would like to thank the Principal for providing me with an opportunity to become the chairperson for this session. I shall now briefly deal with the presentations done by the students. All of them were very informative and insightful. So we had the first speaker, Mr. Rupit Bandari, who spoke about story of food adulteration. He referred to adulteration as degrading the quality of food through addition of chemicals, preservatives, etc. Further, he told us about the causes such as high population, gap between demand and supply. It could also be self-interest or it could be unintentional. All of us are aware that a number of food products that we consume daily are contaminated and adulterated. For example, milk, honey, sweets, spices, etc. And when a food product is adulterated, it causes vomiting, poisoning, and a number of diseases. So we know that adulteration is harmful to our health. So fortunately, we now have FSSAI, which keeps a check on food safety standards and adulteration. This is a malpractice, so it should be discontinued. The second speaker was Ms. Neha Dabas, who spoke about hygiene and sanitation. She said that hygiene is a series of practices performed to preserve health. And according to World Health Organization, hygiene helps to maintain health and prevent the spread of diseases. Health, we all know, is a fundamental right, a basic human right. Sanitation helps to keep the environment clean. If we do not have a clean environment, then it can cause a number of diseases. We do see garbage being disposed on the road. This causes a lot of pollution and a number of diseases as well. Therefore, we must realize the importance of hygiene and sanitation. So hygiene will also include personal hygiene, preventing food contamination, etc. The last speaker, Ms. Tijika Gulia, spoke about sports and nutrition. Nutrition and diet help to improve a person's athletic strength. Nutrition provides a source of energy required to perform the activity. A good diet will consist of the right amount of proteins, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, etc. So it is very important that the athletes have the right amount of nutrition in their diet if they want to perform well in the activities. So all these presentations were very interesting, very informative and insightful. I now request you all to please ask questions to the respective speakers. Thank you. Do we have questions?
Participants also can unmute their microphones and then can ask the presenters if at all you have any questions.
I would like to just elaborate on the question that was previously asked. So the question was, can preservatives be adulterants? And the answer is yes. So there are usually two classes of adulterants. One is One class is where the limits or the concentrations are not monitored, and the other class is where concentration limits must be monitored. And it's usually the second class that when exceeding
Rupit, I have a question for you. Do you think the pandemic has affected the quality of food in any manner? Rupit, this question is for you. Do you think the pandemic has affected the quality of food in any manner?
issues has affected the production, which may have
Okay.
resulted to a larger wide gap that I was talking about between the supply and
Yes.
demand,
Yes.
and that may have been a bit of a filling for more adulteration.
Yes. There was a time when we were falling short of so many
The
food
pandemic
products.
scare might have a hand in improving, yes, exactly. The production during the early stages of the pandemic were extremely, products that were being sold that were completely,
Yes.
at least early on, did have a massive, impact on the food in terms of food adulteration as well as food safety as a whole.
Yeah. The supply of food was affected.
Participants, do you all have any more questions? Okay, since there are no more questions, I'm assuming most of the participants did a very good job. All the participants did a very good job. The feedback link for the session has been posted in the chat box. Kindly provide us with your valuable feedback. Now, before we say goodbye, I would like to request Dr. Mukta Karmadi to propose the vote of thanks.
Once again, good morning, everybody. The presentations are over, and also we didn't have many questions as such, so we are concluding this session. But before we bid adieu, We wish to express our gratitude to all those who have contributed to the success of this sixth session of Conclave 2021 Student Webinar Series. On behalf of the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Dempe College of Arts and Science, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to the chairperson, Mrs. Vandana Sardesai, for accepting our invitation and sparing her time to chair this session. Thank you very much, Mrs. Vandana. It was a great pleasure having you with us today. I
Thank you,
thank our
ma'am.
principal, Professor Vrinda Borkar, for always encouraging us and supporting to organize innovative programs and events. I express my heartfelt gratitude to the management of DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science for their unwavering support in all our endeavors. I would like to congratulate and thank today's speakers and their mentors. Firstly, Mr. Rupit Bhandari and his mentor, Mrs. Sonia Parsekar, Assistant Professor in Chemistry. Thank you so much. Mrs. Neha Dabas and her mentor, Mrs. Suchana Amonkar, Associate Professor in Zoology. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. And the last presenter, Ms. Tijika Gulia and her mentor, Mr. Sachin Nayak, Instructor Physical Education. Thank you. Thank you very much, all the presenters, for very informative and interesting presentation. You have done the good job. Congratulations. Our sincere thanks to all the participants for joining us today. Thank you all for making this event a success. I thank Mr. Gaurang Bane, our system admin, and Mr. Chandan Nayak, assistant professor, for the technical support and social media publicity. I also thank Dr. Jocelyn Hendricks for moderating this session. Once again, thank you all for being with us today. We shall meet again for next session of Conclave 2021. Thank you very much and wishing you all a good day ahead. A gentle reminder to all the participants, please fill the feedback forms which are the link is posted in the chat window. Thank you. Mrs. Vandana, you want to say anything?
It was a pleasure listening to the speakers. They had made very good presentations. So they have done good research. So congratulations to all the speakers. Good job. Thank you.
So we have concluded the session. The participants may leave the meet. Thank you so much.